Hello, my name is Sam, my pronouns are they, them, and welcome back to my office. So, it has been like 3 weeks of me taking a completely unexpected break, and it sucked. And I missed this, but, you know, depression really do be that way sometimes, you know, and that's fine. So, I have my iced caramel apple spice with vanilla sweet cream cold foam. So it's exactly 10:15 p.m. on Friday, May 5th, and I am ready to get started on the absolute chaos that is going to be this weekend. So, let's talk about some lofty goals. I don't know if I'm going to meet them or not, but I'm going to try my darndest. I want to read, tab, and do a character chart on The Priory of the Orange Tree by Samantha Shannon, and then the prequel, A Day of Fallen Night by Samantha Shannon. So let's be honest here. I haven't done the math, but I'm pretty sure there's something close to 1,700 pages between the two of these. So that's a pretty lofty goal. And this is a reread for The Priory of the Orange Tree. And it'll be my first time reading A Day of Fallen Night. But when I read Priory the first time, I acknowledged that I probably would like it more if I didn't read it over like a month and a half, maybe 2 months. So I felt like it was important for me to go back and reread Priory before I started on Day of Fallen Night, and I might regret this. You know, I feel like I need it. So what are my supplies going to be to complete this task? So my notebook for my character chart and any other notes that I feel like I need to take are going to be in this notebook. It is the biggest notebook I have, and therefore I feel the most comfortable using it. I got it on clearance at Target like 2 years ago, and this is what I used when I did a short character chart on the Broken Earth trilogy. I will be using these color book tabs. They are the slightly clear ones, and I chose them because they were my ones that matched the best to both colors. And then I don't have it with me at this exact moment, but I have a pen that has 4 different colors, and it's a really, really fine tip pen, so I'm going to use that one to do any notes, underlining, all that fun stuff. This is going to be a full annotation for me. I'm super excited for this. I'm totally expecting to have to step away from fantasy for like a couple books after this, but I'm totally emotionally prepared for that. I guess let's get started. Hi, hello. First of all, yes, my hair is crunchy. It's still setting. I cannot crunch out the stuff yet, so we're just gonna live with this. It is Saturday right now. It's like 5 o'clock. I have only done like 4 hours of reading today because I was going super strong this morning. I had taken Sadie out on a walk. We did our thing, and then I came back and I read for 4 hours, and then I made lunch. And then it derailed. And I'm gonna blame my partner for that because she definitely distracted me. And that's fine. Everything's fine. But I'm like just under 200 pages through this so far, and I'm really liking it so far. I'm liking it more this time than I liked it the first time. So I think that I was definitely correct in the fact that like this is something that I just have to sit down and go through. It's not something that I can like pick up, read a couple pages, put it down, I can't do the up and down with it, and I'm kind of realizing why now. So let's not talk about my handwriting. Let's not talk about my lack of organization skills, but let us talk about the amount of characters that are in this novel. Look at this. Can you see it? Yes, you can see it. Look at that. Look at all that. 200 pages in. 200 pages in. Out of over 800 pages. And I have, like, probably close to 30 or 40 characters to keep track of. And sure, not all of them are, like, completely 100% important in any capacity. But, like, so this follows, like, two different, well, more like 3 different storylines for the most part, and then it kind of breaks off, I think, into more of like 4. But you've got, like, I think it's the East and the West. So we start off with the East, and this is dragon territory, not worm territory. Worms are bad, dragons are good. And we're following, I think it's pronounced Tane, and her journey working with these dragons, like, interacting with some of these characters, and all of these things. And then we go back to the West, and we're following the Queen of Inez and one of her, like, ladies in waiting or whatever. I don't really know the title. I keep forgetting. Chambermaid? I don't know. I can't be bothered with the court, like, names and little tiny things. Like, I can't be bothered with the court stuff. It's not something that, like, weighs down the story too significantly, so it's fine. And that is Eid. And then we also have the third this third story, which is also, like, in the West, and it's, like, Lord Loth, and he's getting sent off to a place basically to die by the Queen of Inez's spy master because he was impeding on her ability to marry. So, like, we're following 3 completely different stories. And, like, yes, I know that they all tie back in together. And I don't have a problem with any of this, because this is what you get when you go into a high fantasy, and I love this. But I just remember why it's not something that you can pick up and put down. Because every time you pick it up and you put it down and you walk away for a couple days, like, things just start to fly off your head, and then you get confused. So it's really something that you need to read in, like, chunks. So I'm loving it so much more in my reread because I am reading it how it is meant to be read. Do not pick up this book if you are the kind of person who reads 20 pages and then puts it down and then walks away for, like, a day. This is, like, read 200 pages at a time kind of book. You know what I mean? And I know that that's not feasible for a lot of people, but the story is more enjoyable when you keep that big, continuous chunk with it. You know what I mean? Like, Samantha Shannon is very clear in everything that's going on, but when you start to lose little bits and pieces of it, you come back and you're like, wait a second. Hold the phone. Where was I? What's going on? So, that's where I'm at. I love it so far. I'm really happy to be rereading it, and I'm gonna go finish making some dinner and keep reading. Okay. Hello. So, I have not gotten very much reading done since we last spoke, but the bean has been burritoed. She's currently kicking me because I'm drying her feet. She came inside with disgustingly muddy paws, so we had to have a foot bath, and my dumbass, I normally give her foot baths in the kitchen sink. We have a little sprayer nozzle. It works out fine. She hates it. So I was like, well, let me go and try and put her in the shower to see if she's more comfortable that way tonight. And she still managed to get herself soaked. So now, instead of reading, I will be sitting here with my 13, almost 14-year-old dog, drying her off in a nice snuggly little towel because she's a baby and she got her paws muddy. If you need anything from me, I will be in this exact position for the next half an hour, 45 minutes. Okay, hello. It is Wednesday, my dudes. I have not updated anything. So I have many things to say. But you see, I need to make food. And I desperately want garlic knots. And garlic knots take about 3 hours. So before I say all of my things about the Priory of the Orange Tree, which I am on page 600 of, before all those words come spilling out of my mouth, let's do a little trash aesthetic garlic making moment, because they are the best thing that I've ever made in my entire life, and I'm obsessed with them, and I will be making them consistently for the next like 3 months until I eat so many of them that I physically want to vomit at the sight of them. So let's do that. So, you know what? We're going to talk about the Priory of the Orange Tree while I chop up some garlic and finish up making my garlic knots. And you know what? You guys are going to have to look at my face for this one, because I'm not willing to put my knife skills on the internet. You know what? I'm willing to put a lot of things on the internet. I will look like an idiot in a lot of different ways on the internet. You know what? Having people mock my knife skills? No. No. I do my best, but you know what? As much as I watch Chef Ann on Worst Cooks in America, you know what? I can never figure it out. So you're stuck with my face on this one, and that's fine. So I'm on page like 600 of Priory of the Orange Tree right now, and I'm still really loving it. Like, I did not think that going into this I was going to hate it in any capacity. I thought, honestly, that I was going to love it more, and I don't, which is fine. Like, I don't want anyone to think that there's anything wrong with this book, because I don't even want to say that there's anything wrong with it at this point. I think that Samantha Shannon's writing is really, like, easy and really consumable and understandable, which I understand is crucial for a story of her, like, size and her complexity. But I don't know, it's just like a big epic fantasy, and like a really big part of me wants like a little bit more flower and pizzazz to the writing, just because of like the setting of the story and the vibe of the story. Like, I don't have anything really bad to say about her writing in any capacity. I think it's very well done. I think that it's very clear, very understandable. She has a lot of different things going on, like, at all times, but I don't ever really feel confused about what's going on and who's who and this and that. Like, and when you have those subtle little, like, coincidences of, like, Loth being on the boat to, oh my god, Yaskali? I think it's Yaskali. And then Ede ending up on that same boat. Like, you remember those little things, you get those little details, and I think that, like, clear, simple writing is, like, a really easy way to get that across. But I don't know, for some reason, like, my brain just wants, like, more flower to the language, more, like, description. Like, one of my tabs for pretty much every book I read is, revolves around diction, specifically because, you know what, when an author picks, like, a really good word or a really good phrase, I just feel the need to note it so I can go back and look at it and acknowledge that. And when I tab books for authors like N.K. Jemisin or Morgan Rogers, like, you see so many of those tabs in there. And, like, honestly, I have barely tabbed my copy of The Priory of the Orange Tree. And I don't particularly think that's a bad thing, because I think that part of it is that I'm getting very immersed into the world. But I also think a part of it is that, like, nothing's particularly blowing my mind, like blowing me out of my socks, I guess, if that makes sense. And I don't want anyone to think that any of these, like, are really big critiques, because obviously they're not. Like, the story's beautifully written, it's very well composed, like, it's clear, it's understandable, it's everything that you want a high fantasy book to be, because you don't want them to be, like, super confusing and difficult and, like, you can't even understand what you're reading. But, like, you know what I mean? Sometimes you just want something that's a little bit more, if that makes sense. Like, I don't even know what I'm really asking for. I don't think that I'm asking for anything. Because I really enjoy the story, and I really enjoy her writing, I really enjoy her characters. I think she's very good at relationships. I'm crushing up my garlic right now, sorry. Like, all of those are things that I think that she really excels at, and I think that this book does incredibly well. I'm not, like, in awe, I don't think, is the thing. And I kind of expected to be in awe, and I kind of feel like I'm the problem at this exact moment in time, because I feel like I should really be focusing on, like, how beautifully she structures her narrative in the story, because ultimately you're lofollowing so many different people. So you're basically following Ede, and then you're following Loth, and then you're following Tane, you're following Ruse, like, and then there are all of these other people as well. Like, you're kind of following Sovereign, and, like, that's a lot of story to keep going and to make clear, understandable, make it very distinct when you're switching voices, like, all of that stuff. Like, all of that's very distinct and difficult to do, but I'm not melting because I'm just obsessed and in love. I'm just very genuinely having a good time, and I think that I expected to be melting, which is stupid of me, because I have read this book before. I really want to remind everyone that I have read this book, and I did enjoy it. And this is a reread, but I don't know, for some reason my brain on the second time around was just like, no, this is gonna be, like, world-changing, life-altering. It's not really that, and that's fine. Like, I'm enjoying it still. Like, I'm having a very genuinely good time. So yeah, that's where I'm at so far. Like, obviously the story's beautiful. Obviously I'm enjoying myself. The writing is beautiful. Like, the writing's really well done, even if it's fairly simple. The narrative structure is really impressive, honestly. Like, I don't feel like I've pointed it out enough that the narrative structure in this is really impressive. Like, you very easily jump from character to character, and it's not like your narrator is really changing all that much, but the narrative perspective is changing constantly. And it's just so impressive. So really this has been an update to say, like, I really admire Samantha Shannon as a writer. I think that her stories are incredibly well done. I'm not on, like, the N.K. Jemisin level of obsession. Let's put the knots on display. Look at them. Aren't they pretty? They must go in the oven now. So yeah, that's where I'm at. So I've got about 200 more pages to go, and I am excited to continue. I'm kind of more excited to start on the next one, but just because it's new. welcome to my little sewing corner. So I have finished the Priory of the Orange Tree and I have started on Day of Fallen Night. So I need to give updates on everything. But I also need to complain just a smidge. I love my partner. I love her dearly. And I had sprained my ankle like probably 2 years ago. And I was kind of stuck on bed rest for like 2 weeks. So I was like, well, let me give her something. And I hand embroidered her this whole jacket. Look at it. Look at it. This is when I just started embroidering. And you know what? She has decimated these sleeves. That's just a hole. So I need to fix that. And I'm gonna talk to y'all about my reading while I do so, because it's been like a year and it needs to get fixed. So let's do that. Also, welcome to my sewing corner. I hope that I can show it to you more often with some stuff that is coming up. So let's talk about Priory of the Orange Tree. First of all, I really need to start looking at my ratings before I do rereads, because I did not realize that originally I had given the Priory of the Orange Tree 5 stars. And for some reason, when I started this, I did not feel like I had given Priory of the Orange Tree 5 stars. I felt like I had a different experience with it that wasn't 5 stars. You know what I mean? So I don't know what past me was really thinking. Past me was probably thinking, wow, I really liked this. I wish I liked it more. And maybe that's my fault, so I'm still going to give it 5 stars. Because sometimes I feel really guilty about books that I can acknowledge that I read at the wrong time, because I know that they're things that I would love, but they're just things that, like, now is not the right time. And sometimes I feel like books and authors shouldn't be penalized for my idiocracy. But that's besides the point. That's like a whole other conversation to be had, I guess. And I honestly think after my reread, I might drop it down just an absolute smidge. Okay, here's the thing. I don't know if I'm going to. So let's talk about it, and then towards the end we can make a decision, because I'm really not sure. I feel that I loved this book. It was great. I had a really fun time. It was very well done. It was well written. The characters were well developed. Like, I don't really have anything to say about the quality of the story itself. Like, the story was great. The world building was truly fantastic. Like, let's just talk about how impressive that world building was. So she had to come up with not 1, not 2, but 3 whole separate religions in 3 whole separate areas, fully explain them, fully normalize them, and then create conflict in between them, while following different characters that followed said religion and showing the clash in between them when things got, like, funky. And, like, that's insane. To do that all in only 800 pages while also having a story on top of it, that's impressive. That's, like, a hardcore work of artistry, and I really, really admire her for how ballsy of a move that was, honestly. Like, on an artistry level, that's insanely impressive. I don't know what I feel like was missing, but I feel like something was missing for me personally. And I haven't been able to figure out what it is. I don't think it's the romance, because the romance between Sovereign and Eid was good for me. And the writing style, I thought, was fine. The writing style was not, like, my favorite writing style of all time, but I thought that it was fine. I feel like another part of the problem might be that I have not fully gotten into, like, adult fantasy. I'm definitely still in my transition phase from young adult fantasy to adult fantasy, so I think that just kind of makes things hard. in terms of my expectations for things. And ultimately, no, I'm not just reading YA. It's not like I've just been reading YA for a long time, but like it was my main genre for a long time. I mean, I'm only 24. This is kind of like my transition phase. So I think that kind of also might be part of it, where it's just like I lay different expectations on the writing style with like the action of the story. And it's not so much that I don't like her writing style. Like I do like it. I don't think there's anything wrong with it. I think it's very clear, it's very straightforward, which is ultimately what you need when you have such a complicated story in terms of world building and like character arcs and all of that. So logistically, I understand that this should be a 5-star book, because I don't have any faults with it. I really enjoyed it. I enjoyed my time with the story. I enjoyed my time with the characters. The beginning was a little bit slow, but ultimately the beginning has to be slow when you're building this complex of a world. And once I got past like the first 200 pages, like things were picking up and I didn't want to put it down. And you know what? I think with that statement, I've answered my own question of I am going to keep this as a 5-star, because when I say that I didn't want to put it down for an 800-page book, that's really impressive. I'm just kind of realizing, like, talking through it, I really did have a good time. And I think that the expectations that I had set for this to be, like, the most world-changing kind of story, because it was a beautiful sapphic high fantasy, was unrealistic, and it didn't even curb my enjoyment of it, really. Like, it only curbs the thought of my enjoyment when I'm just sitting here thinking about it. Like, I really genuinely enjoyed myself while I was going through the reading, and I really admire Samantha Shannon as an author. So, honestly, I've answered my own question, and I'm keeping it as a 5-star. Yes, you can see my thought process as I work through what I think of books, and no, it often does not make sense. But that is the life that we live. And I have started Day of Fallen Night. I started that yesterday. I'm already like 60 pages in or so, and I'm enjoying it so far. I think that the part that I'm least enjoying right now is the character that we're following in the East. I think that her name is like Erna, I believe. And so far she is my least favorite that we're following. I'm really enjoying the way that the sovereign Inez monarchy is being like told out, and the incompetence that is rampant in that system, even like 500 years ago. Like, I really enjoy that. I enjoy what's going on. Well, I don't enjoy what's going on in the Priory right now, but I'm fascinated by it and by this character that we're supposed to be following. Like, I am really just fascinated. And I think that so far where I'm lacking is the character in the East, which I'm sure that won't continue to be the case, because I really think that the East's like foundation in the story is really interesting, and I just kind of really like it. I guess we'll kind of figure it out as we go. You know, I'm only 60 pages in and we got another like 800 to go. I guess I'm gonna keep sewing so I can fix this, and then I will read and I will update everyone later. There's some weird shit going on, and I don't know how to feel about it. I don't know how I feel about this one in comparison to the Priory, honestly. I think there are some things that I like a little bit more, and I think there are definitely some things that I like a little bit less. And I'm finding that my engagement and my like ability to stay within the world is not as solid as the Priory. So, I don't know. I'm on page like 424, so I'm only halfway there. So there's still plenty to go, but I don't know how I feel at this point. Okay, hello. So here we are at the end of this, and it has definitely taken me longer than I originally planned to finish up these 2 books, but I've finally done it. So I finished yesterday morning, Day of Fallen Night by Samantha Shannon. And I feel like I had a really hard time with this. Much more than I did with Priory of the Orange Tree, honestly. I couldn't really like get my thoughts together on what I thought about this. Like, I went into the goal of this book with tabbing it, and I don't know if you can see, but there's one singular tab. I tabbed it one time in 800 pages. There was one thing that I felt like compelled to tab. And I am normally like a tabber. So this is my copy of the Priory now. And it was definitely more in the beginning because there was a lot of world building in the beginning of Priory, and I do love that. Normally when I do my tabbing systems, I have like certain things that I think that I want to focus on, and normally when it comes to fantasy, I have world building, diction, relationships, narratology, and then I have like an oh my god section. And that's pretty consistent when it comes to fantasy and how I tab. Things change with other genres because I have different focuses for other genres. And it was pretty much exactly the same for Day of Fallen Night. So that wasn't great. It kind of shows that it was definitely hard for me to keep interest in it and focus on it. And I think a lot of it had to do with like the pacing of the story itself. You know, because I can definitely say that there has been an improvement on writing style in A Day of Fallen Night. Like, obviously Samantha Shannon is a little bit more experienced, has definitely grown since writing The Priory of the Orange Tree in a good way. Like, I am happier with her writing style in this than I was with The Priory. And I thought her characters were a little bit more fleshed out. Like, I really adored Wolf as a character, and I also felt like her relationships themselves were a lot more fleshed out, a lot more dynamic, a lot more interesting. Because in The Priory of the Orange Tree, like, Eid and Sovereign's relationship, like, could have been fleshed out better. And I definitely did not have that problem with the characters in A Day of Fallen Night. There was one relationship, it was between Demai and Nakia? I think it was Nakia. And theirs definitely had like that court relationship, like falling in love when y'all shouldn't be, and like unsure of what's deceit and what's not, and what's court games and what's not. Like, it had those vibes, but I felt like it was built so much better. Wolf's relationship with Rit, so well done. Tuva and Espar's relationship, to die for. Loved Tuva and Espar's relationship. Oh my god. So good. So obviously the relationships were like so much better, so much more fleshed out, so much more dynamic and interesting. But I really felt like the pacing and the structure of this was not for me. It was not the vibe. I don't know. I just wanted there to be a better flow to the story itself. Like, so this takes place over like 2 years. It doesn't feel like it takes place over 2 years at all. And a lot of the time it feels like we are at a high event point. And where it should have your high event and taper down a little bit and give you kind of a transition section, it felt more like, well, here is a high event. Here we're gonna move into like a slightly lower event. There's still some life or death really going hardcore right here. But then we're just gonna pop right back up into a whole different like high stakes point. So obviously, like, this is a war. A lot of the story takes place in like the middle of a war that lasts over a fairly long period of time. Through a large portion of this world. We see fight scenes in the north. We see fight scenes in the west. We see fight scenes in the southern region. We see fight scenes in the east. and there are like completely different plot lines and crazy things going on all around, it kind of hopped. Like, it jumped from here and it jumped from there and it jumped from here and it jumped from there, and not a pleasant fashion, like not an engaging, like gripping fashion. I also was not a big fan of the way that the storylines intertwined. So when you were reading The Priory of the Orange Tree, you get integration of the story. You kind of understand why you're following these characters, and they all kind of come together at a point. That really was not the case with Day of Fallen Night. And there was this weird connection between Glorian and Dumai that I don't feel like it was necessary. And I say that I don't feel like it was necessary because I felt like it set up for them to have a bigger connection than they did. I was expecting them to have a meeting point. I was expecting more from them. And I feel like it was a kind of a letdown of, like, I expected our storylines to weave together a little bit more than they did. This was hard because ultimately I'm giving Day of Fallen Night 4 stars. There was some definite improvement in writing style, relationships, like character development, all of that in this story in comparison to The Priory of the Orange Tree. But I feel like structurally and like flow-wise, it often felt disconnected, and it kind of hindered my reading experience. Now, I know everyone's like, you've been like shit-talking this book for like 10 minutes now for the most part, and you still gave it a 4-star? Yes, I did give it a 4-star because ultimately, like, the relationships between characters really saved it. It was such a massive improvement, and I just loved the relationships between the characters, and I loved the characters themselves. I felt Glorian so hard in my soul. I loved her, and I also really connected with Dumai. I just loved this for the characters more than I loved it for the story itself. Like the overarching, like, war dragon story, I wasn't really all that interested in. I was interested in the characters' individual, like, emotional well-being and plot lines and, like, all that fun stuff, but, like, the war itself, like, the war itself, the dragons, all of that, like, I didn't care about it at all. I was completely uninterested in it. But the characters were so wonderful. And let's just talk about some of the LGBTQIA+/queer rep. So things are not stated in this, and that's based on, like, the society that they're in. The labels and things like that are not as necessary. The actions are kind of what makes you understand the representation. So we definitely have, like, lesbians. We have lesbians galore. We have asexual representation. Glorian is asexual. She reproduces because she has to, and that is an expectation that is set even with us from the beginning. That's not a spoiler. We all know that Glorian have had a baby, because the throne continued. We had a gay man. We had multiple gay men. We had a happy little gay family, like a whole societally accepted little gay family with adopted children. We had so much good queer rep. So much good queer rep in every single aspect. And can we also talk about the fact that Dumai definitely, like, was never distinguished, but was definitely given off, like, some non-binary, like, vibes. But can we talk, number one, about the one identified non-binary person in this entire story? I think their name was Born. They were Glorian's doctor. It was not discussed. Nothing was said. they just referred to them as they. I loved it. And Bourne was not like a main character in any capacity. They were just there. They were just a doctor. And they were like, y'all's like Inish ways of doing medicine is stupid. I loved them. I loved them so much. And it was so nice to see like an outward non-binary character in this kind of society, in this kind of world, because it's not something that had to be included. Like, it's something that we as readers would have understood if it was not included, but it was so nice to see just thrown in there casually, without a conversation, without recognition, without anything, just acceptance. And that's just what I have to say. I liked this. I don't want anyone to think that I did not like this. I really enjoyed this book. I had issues with it. It wasn't a 5-star. It wasn't perfect. I have critiques on it. But that does not negate the fact that I did really enjoy certain aspects of this. It took me so long, but I did it. I reread Priory of the Orange Tree, and I read Day of Fallen Night. Now, do I regret my choices at all? No. Not at all. Are these my favorite fantasy books of all time? No. But they're really good ones, and I really like them, and I really like Samantha Shannon's writing, and I will continue reading her books. Am I tired of fantasy right now? Yes, I'm exhausted with fantasy, but it's worth it. Just take your time with them. Don't place high expectations on yourself, because the print is also fairly small, and it took me almost double the time to read these as it would like my normal reading pace. It just took forever. Truly. I guess that brings me to the end of my Samantha Shannon reading vlog. I've definitely been gone from YouTube for like a month and a half. Sorry. I have some fun things coming up. I hope that everyone else thinks they're fun. I'm definitely not going to be picking up big chunky books for a while. I need a break. I need some lighter reads. So come to expect some lighter reads in the future. But yeah, if y'all want to stick around, you can. I have some exciting stuff in terms of reading, exciting stuff in terms of some other things that are going to be coming to this channel area, and I hope you want to stick around and hang out with me and my chaos. I hope everyone's having a fantastic day, and I will see y'all next time. Bye.